Hello everybody, Sam and Shai here from Next Gen Devs, and I'm going to teach you how to make video games. Now, this first episode isn't going to be the most exciting, but things are going to start moving pretty fast, and if you don't have these fundamentals down, you're not going to be able to keep up. So, first things first, you're going to need to make a new project. Now, I'm just going to call this, tutorial basics, I guess. And start. So once this is done loading, you're going to see this on the side. This is kind of the Project Explorer. This is where all of the resources for your game are going to be. The sprites, sounds, backgrounds, objects, rooms, all of this stuff. The resources for your game are going to be kept here. So let's start off by talking about the rooms. I'm going to make a new room by clicking up here. These are like the levels or the screens for your game. Like your main menu will be a room, your levels will be a room, your your win screen will be a room. All this stuff is just the rooms. This is kind of where everything. It's kind of where you're gonna actually like, put together like your levels and such. It's where the objects are gonna be kept, stuff like that. In the settings here, you can actually see some stuff like the name of the room. I'm just gonna call this like test room. The width and the height are like the width of the screen and the width and the height. So if I do this 500 versus 1024, it'll kind of make this. And the height, if I do like 900 or 1000 or 1 million or whatever, not a good idea, but it'll change that accordingly. Now, this is the speed. This is incredibly important. This is kind of like the frame rate. It's the speed that everything runs at. And it's like most things in your game will revolve around steps and like the step event, which runs this many times a second. So you're going to see a lot of that. Like if I would change this to 60, if I change the speed to 60, everything will run twice as fast as if the speed was 30. So this is very important. Alright, so let's try to create a background first. So the background is pretty much what it sounds like. It's a background. It's a static image. You can't interact with it or attach it to objects. Yeah, it can't be controlled or animated. It's just a background. So yeah, let's just do edit background and work with this a little bit. I'm using a scroll wheel to zoom in. This is quite small, but yeah, this is the image editor for Game Maker, where you can kind of draw things. And I just want to have like a blue sky, so I'm gonna take the fill tool. This isn't really important, but and I'm gonna have like a blue background, and there's gonna be whatever white circles for clouds. I'm gonna press check and OK. So now let's put this in our room. Right now it's just a blank gray, but let's go into the backgrounds tab of our room editor. And in background 0, which we'll have selected, we gotta check visible when room starts, which is just what it sounds like, where it's visible when the room starts. And we're gonna select the background 0, and you can see that's automatically tiling and everything. If you press the check mark, now that we have our test room, you can press this button to run the game, test it out. And now you can see that after this splash screen, we just have our room. Something cool that we can do is we can actually set the we can actually make this scroll and move across the screen by setting the horizontal and vertical speed of this background to, let's say I want this to move like 1 pixel per second. Sorry, not 1 pixel per second, 1 pixel every frame, which is where the speed comes into play. So I'm going to have it move horizontally 1 pixel, and if we press play, the background is going to move to the right 1 pixel 30 times per second. And there we go. And if you want, you can make it move faster by setting this to it to 2 pixels every frame, which will be over here. So you can set that to 2, and then something else that you can do is you can change the vertical speed if you want to make it move diagonally, but yeah, you can see that it's moving faster. to the vertical speed 2 to make it move diagonally. Vertical speed 1, so now it's moving over 2 pixels and up 1 every frame. And that speed is 30 times per second. And you can kind of see, well, obviously it's not moving down. But if you want to set it to a negative number, it'll move negative 2 pixels or things like that. Yeah, we can like have it move in a different direction too. I'm not gonna mess with this background too much anymore right now. But if you can see, like negative 2, it'll move the other way. And now it's moving left. So now we gotta move on to the sprites, and this is one of the most important things next to objects. Sprites are basically the images for your game. They're an image resource that the object can use. So like your player might be a sprite, your player image might be a sprite, a platform might be a sprite, just things that can be used on objects basically. So let's make a sprite. Now we can also do this by right clicking and doing create sprite. I'm just gonna call this, what do you want to make this sprite? I'm gonna make this, I don't know, sad face. Let me press edit sprite. Now what we gotta do is we have to make a new image. And we can double click that to get into the editor just as quickly as possible. I'm gonna make him kind of like blue because he's sad. I'm gonna make it 2 eyes, and then I'm just gonna draw sad face. There we go. He's quite a sad person. I'm gonna press OK. There we go. Now we can actually make an object that has this sprite on it. Yeah, an object is kind of is what has the code in it. It's just we can place it in the room. So I'm gonna set the sprite to the sad face. We're gonna call this sad object, and just press OK. Now if we go into the room and we go to the objects tab, we can actually take this sad object and put him in our level. So now let's just make a ton of these sad objects, put them in the room, and then now if we run our game, you can see all of the objects that we placed. Now let's make this, actually first I want to tell you, when we're placing the objects, it does have some controls like left click to add or move one, or right alt to make it so it's not like snapping to the grid. Lots of controls. You can actually just read them right here. I would actually take a minute to just go over these. And yeah. So let's make this interactive. Now the first thing that you have to do, well, not necessarily. So let's add some code to this. The first thing that you need to know is that GameMaker, all the code runs off events and actions. Events are things that happen in your game, like okay, when the player presses the left mouse button, or when the room starts, or while you're holding the left arrow key, or when you press the space bar, stuff like that. Those are the events. And once the event is triggered, it'll do the action. So, like when an event happens, do the actions that correspond to it, which is basically what the object is doing, the code. So let's try something. So, you press the add event, you can see all these different events that we can use. We're going to do the create event, which basically means when the object is created, when it's starting off. Let's just go into the move tab of all these actions. These are where all the actions that you can use to make your code are kept. Whoops. Whoa. What the heck? Alright, so in this create line, this is kind of the actions window where all the actions that you would use to make up your code are kept. Now let's do something where, in the create event, let's just have him start moving right at, let's say, 5 pixels per second. Let's press OK, and now if we run this, once these objects are created, which is at the start of the room, all of them are moving right at 5 pixels per second. Now let's try something else. Let's try, like, when you're pressing the right arrow key, it's moving right. So let's just delete that event. And then add event in the keyboard section. This is like while you're pressing the button. The key press is once you press it. Key release is once you let go of the key, but this keyboard section is just while you're pressing. So let's use the right arrow key. And then let's take in this move action, set the direction to the right and 5 pixels per second. Now, let's try this. Now, at the start of the room, none of these should be moving, but while you're pressing the right arrow key, they all move right. But when you let go, it's still moving right. Well, that's because we did not tell the code, all we told it to do was start to move right. We never told it to let go. Now, something that you can do is that instead of just setting it to just move right, there's actions here where like you can make it move just a certain amount of pixels, which is what we can do here. So if we actually delete this action, we can do like just move a certain amount of pixels. And I'll go over this in more depth now. But now instead of setting a direction, telling it, okay, off you go, we're just saying while you're holding the right key, move over 5 pixels. So now if we press OK, what we can do is while we're holding the right arrow key, it'll move right, but once you let go, it stops because that's what we're telling it to do. So that's all the basic stuff. That's just how Game Maker works. Thanks for keeping through this. I know it hasn't been the most exciting thing in the world, but in the next episode, we're going to make a spaceship move around the screen. Thanks for watching.